Time to talk about our pretest and the correct answers therein. So, number one talks about the fact that angle WYZ, the one in the bottom left here that's marked, and ZTX, the one in the top right are marked. They're congruent to each other. It also says that X is the midpoint of WZ, so you can see the markings there, the hash marks showing they're congruent. And we can say that angle 1 is congruent to angle 2 by vertical angles. So the reason the two triangles have to be congruent is that angle, side, because we have two angles marked and we have one side, and the side is not between the two angles. If the side was between the two angles, it would be ASA. But as it's not, it's angle, side. Next one, we have marked the MA and AR are marked. You can see the hash mark there. That's because A is the midpoint. We are told that these are 90-degree angles here, so they're equal. And we're also told that angle MYA is congruent to angle RYA. And when we get a diagram like this, we go based on what they tell us as much as we can. And based on what they tell us, it's angle, side. Okay, angle, side. If they did not, again, the side's not between the two angles. If they didn't tell us about these angles at the end, then we could do reflexive and get side, angle, side. Okay, next up, trying to get these proofs together here. Sorry that part of the diagram is missing. Bottom line is these angles up top are going to be congruent by an angle bisector. So the angles up top are angle DAC and angle BAC. Then, step number 3, what's the reason that AC is congruent to AC? Well, anything equals itself by reflexive, so that's choice D, the reflexive property. Which is the best choice for reason 4? Well, based on the diagram, you can see that the angle up here, angle 1, is between the two sides, so it's side, angle, side, okay? And then last but not least, the reason pieces are always congruent after the triangles are proven congruent is CPCTC. All right, so now we won't have any more sticking off the side of the picture there. Sorry about that. Shouldn't have happened based on the way my diagram was, but oh well. The next step after I list all this given information is that the two triangles are congruent, what they said up top there, and it's by side, angle, side. Notice the angle is in between the two sides, so it is side, angle, side. The next one, I have my diagram marked. I have my two givens, the 1 hash mark and the 2 hash mark. And I know that VX is congruent to VX because of reflexive, anything equals itself. That's what's listed here in steps 1, 2, and 3. And lastly, based on the diagram I'm given, I have side, side, side. Okay, next one. Just marking the diagram, I've got angle 1 congruent to angle 2 by alternate interior angles. That's the third step. And they had given me TU and RS were congruent in the given. That was step 2. And then, of course, they also mentioned the reflexive with RT is congruent to RT. Notice the angle is nestled right in between the two sides. So I have the two triangles congruent as in the given statement up top. And it's by side, angle, side is congruent to side, angle, side. You notice this theme with proofs. On your test, you're not going to be so much asked to do an entire proof, but you'll be asked to write a couple of conclusions based on steps in a proof. Like this one here, why are the two triangles congruent, side, angle, side? You might be asked, hey, is this a reflexive situation? Is it vertical angles? Is it alternate interior angles? Is it something to do with isosceles, etc.? So that's what you have to be prepared for in the test, not an entire proof. Okay, so we've got the angle bisector showing that angle 1 is congruent to angle 2 here. And then, like, here's a good example of what they might ask. They might say, well, what would the fourth step be? And they already gave you that VT is congruent to UT, and we have angle 1 congruent to angle 2 by angle bisector. So we could say TW is congruent to TW by reflexive. And then once I have that, notice the angle is in between the two sides. So I have side, angle, side. All right, so those are some proof type questions that you need to be prepared for on your test. One of the next big topics, I think there are 5 such questions on your test, is to be given a coordinate and then to do transformations and to have you state what the new coordinates are. And you can use notes for this, obviously, because you're taking the test alone. I misspelled clockwise up there. I'm a horrible typist. I do know how to spell. So a 90-degree rotation, and we said the best way to do this is to just remember the formula for negative yx. So I get 2, 8. Point reflection. You can. One of the things I strongly suggest for your test and also on your pretest is that you have a piece of scrap graph paper laying around, even if you just pull one off the internet and print it out, or actually have graph paper, either one, and use that to help you generate what these coordinates would be on the test. And it might not be a bad idea to get a small notebook of graph paper, because in the future we're going to be doing things about graphing lines and slope midpoint distance and so on, and that'll require a lot of graph paper. All right, so the point reflection, if you graph it, then you'll see what it is. And if you don't graph it, then you remember it's negative x, negative y. So negative 8, 2 are the correct solutions there. When you reflect over the x and the y axis, you keep, when you reflect over the x axis, you keep the x the same, negate the y. When you reflect over the y axis, you keep the y the same, negate the x. Again, do it on scrap paper, count and repeat. So for the x-axis, it's 8, 2. For the y-axis, it's negative 8, negative 2. Translation, negative 2, 9. Remember, this means add negative 2 to the x, add 9 to the y. I get 6, 7. Dilation of D4, that means multiply by 4. I get 32, negative 8. D.5, that's really divide by 2, so I get 4, negative 1. And a translation of negative 1, 4, that means add negative 1 to the x, add 4 to the y, I get 7, 2. Now, numbers 5 and 6 are tricky because I'm giving you what the result is, kind of like the game show Jeopardy. You need to ask me, what was the question? What do we start with? So under the translation, negative 2, 3, the answer is 5, 4. What did you have to start with? So you actually have to do inverses. So if you went down 2 to get to 5, you must have started with a 7. So do 5 plus 2 to get to 7. And if you went up 3 to get to 4, then go down 3 from 4 to get to 1. And you can just, whatever you think your answer is, you can plug it in and see if it works. Does 7 and negative 2 make 5? Yes. Does 1 and 3 make 4? Yes. Next one, what's the pre-image under a dilation of D2? Well, you had to multiply by 2 to get to 8, negative 18. So we have to divide by 2 to get to 4, negative 9. Okay? And again, plug it back in, go forward to check yourself. What's that a picture of? Number 7, that's a reflection. Then it's a translation. It's a little hard to see here, but you can see the little markings with horizontal and vertical movements. Okay? But they are there. You'll see them clearer on your paper, I believe. The third one is a reflection, and the fourth one is a rotation. So at some point on the test, you will need to recognize which is which. Now, number 8, 9, and so on and so forth. I don't even use numbers on most of the rest of them. These are just the types of questions that we've been doing all year long. So we're getting much more into prior material. So 85 and 45, if you add them up, you get 130. So the last angle of the triangle has to be 50 because they all add up to 180. By vertical angles, this is also 50. If that's 110, they add up to 160. The missing angle has to be 20. So I get 180 in this lower right triangle also. All right, if this is 116 up here in green, then its adjacent linear pair angle has to be 64. But since this is isosceles, the base angles are equal. This is also 64, which makes this guy 52. So they add up to 180, which makes this guy 52 because they're vertical. And since this is also an isosceles triangle, notice the hash marks, angle D is also 52. Add those up, you get 104. The missing angle has to be 76. Number 9, we have 44 and 47. Together, that's going to add up to 91. So the missing angle is 89. Remember, the biggest angle is always across from the biggest side and vice versa. So the longest side is AC. The next longest side is AB. So AC is greater than AB, and AB is greater than BC because BC is across from the smallest angle. Next, give the angles in order from least to greatest. The least angle will be across from the least side, so that's angle B because the smallest side is 8 meters. Then the next one is C because it's across from the 9. And the biggest is D because it's across from the 13. Okay. Oh, and just in case you're confused here, this is saying the measure of angle B is less than the measure of angle C. So angle B is smallest, angle C is the medium one, and angle C is less than the measure of angle D, just so you know what that notation means. All right, next, we have a rhombus. Rhombus is part of the parallelogram family, so two consecutive angles add up to 180. I crunch the numbers here and I come up with x is 54. But it wants the measure of angle E, and it doesn't tell me anything about E. So you have to realize that angle E is going to equal angle G. The measure of angle E equals the measure of angle G because they're opposite angles. So 2 times 54 for the G is 108 minus 50 is 58. So the measure of angle E is 58. Okay, next up, if BC is TU and 2U and BE is U plus 10. Now I marked it on the diagram to show that they're both pieces of a diagonal and the diagonals bisect each other, so they have to be congruent. So that works out to be that U is 10. But oh, what are they asking for? It wants BC. BC is 2 times 10, which would be 20. Next question. Again, consecutive angles in a parallelogram, they add up to 180. Just write in the equation 2x plus 15 plus x is 180. Same side, same operation, combine like terms. 3x plus 15 is 180. Subtracting the 15, 3x is 165. Dividing by 3, x is 55. So 2 times 55, because we want measure of angle A here, is 110 plus 15 is 125. Another longest, shortest side type situation. The measure of angle A is 60. The measure of angle B is 40. I add those up, I get 100, so the missing angle had to be 80. What's the longest side? It's across from the biggest angle. That has to be AB. All right, next up, find the measure of angle U in rhombus TUVW. The U will be equal to W. So first, since they're consecutive, again, let's add them up to 180. When I combine like terms, I'll get 27 x's plus 72 is 180. Subtracting 72, I get 108, dividing by 27, and I get x is 4. But U equals W, so W is going to be 14 times 4, which is 56, plus 68. That adds up to 124. Next up, again, I have diagonals bisecting each other, so HJ and FJ are going to be equal. So TU minus 11 is going to 20U. TU, Child Unlimited, what am I thinking? 20U minus 11 equals 2U plus 7. Subtracting the 2U, and then I get 18U minus 11 is 7, adding the 11 to both sides and dividing by the 18, and I get U is 1. So what do I need for HJ? HJ is 2 times 1 plus, you can't see it on the page there, 7, and that's going to work out to be 9. Oh, what are they asking for? Next up, FJ and HJ, they're congruent because diagonals bisect each other. So the pieces are going to be equal. 2U plus 2 equals 5U minus 91. Subtracting 2U from both sides, 2 is 3U minus 91. Adding 91, 3U is 93. Dividing, and I get U is 31. In this case, it just says find the value of U, so I am completely done. All right, here's an isosceles triangle. We know the sides are equal on an isosceles triangle, so 3x plus 5 is equal to 5x plus 1. Opposite side, opposite operation. Subtracting the 3 x's, 5 is 2x plus 1. Minusing the 1, 2x is 4, x is 2. All right, next up, triangle ABC, ABC. So I know the 3 angles have to add up to 180, so that's what I write here. I'm missing the equals 180, sorry. It's actually on my screen, it's just not on yours. So combining like terms here, same side, same operation, 7, 12 x's. And if I go 1 and negative 17 and negative 20, I get negative 36 is 180. Add 36, 12x is 216. Dividing by 12, x is 18. All right, and next one, transversal EF intersects AB and CD as shown in the diagram. I know that if angles 3 and 6, consecutive interior, I know if they're supplementary, then the lines have to be parallel. And in the case of all the other choices, the things simply aren't true. Like, For example, 1 and 5 are congruent in choice 4. They're not supplementary. Okay. And next, triangle ABC is congruent to triangle JKL is congruent to triangle RST. So the order of these things is very important. So if I have BC here, that'll be congruent to KL, that's not a choice, and ST, that is a choice. So that'll take us through the first part of our video, and then there'll be a second video to go over the rest of them in just a moment.